All right, guys, so this presentation is going to help you fill out the foldable that you just filled in with questions and blank spaces. So this little presentation is going to talk about some of our most basic constitutional rights as U.S. citizens, our responsibilities, and our duties. And from doing the Perfect Citizen that we did last class, you guys should have a couple ideas about what our duties are and a couple responsibilities. I'm just going to give a little bit more info on each of those and really introduce what our constitutional rights are. Okay, so you might be thinking, what are all these things about? This slide is a general info slide. Do not worry about using any of this information for your foldable. But just so you guys know that rights are what we are entitled to, okay, as citizens, what we get by being citizens in the United States. What we should do are our responsibilities, and what we have to do, required to do, are our duties, okay? And yes, I'm going to say duties a lot of times. Sometimes students laugh. If you choose to laugh during this presentation, every time I say duties, feel free to do so. All right, what are some rights that we have as U.S. citizens? The first thing we're going to talk about is our one way to remember our First Amendment rights, okay? And then we'll talk about each of them. So you guys are filling out the notes at the very bottom. Your bottom page should be blue and have the First Amendment. And then the very top should be red, and it should have the 5th and 14th, okay? And so the way we're going to fill out the 5 letters, RAPS, because RAPS is the way we're going to remember our First Amendment freedoms, okay? And so the R stands for religion, the A stands for assembly, there's 2 P's, so one of them stands for press, one of them stands for petition, and one of them stands for, the S stands for speech, all right? And so please make sure, if you need to, pause the video here and make sure you get all 5 of those down, because these are going to be very, very, very important topics that we're not only just going to talk about this unit, but is going to go out throughout the whole entire year, okay? So, and these are very good topics to do current events on. So here's just some more information and some pictures to hopefully give you an idea of what you can draw in your little picture column for each of these 5 freedoms, all right? So these are going to go in order just like we did it. So first is going to be freedom of religion. And this gives us all the ability to practice whatever religion we choose to worship in. So it gives everybody the ability to pick and worship how they would like. So there's no national religion in the United States. The president cannot declare that we are going to have any one faith be our national faith. Okay, and this is really great because it allows everybody, no matter where they're from, to continue to practice their religion. So there's no need, or you shouldn't feel as though you have to be of one faith. And it gives us a great chance to have a really great dialogue and learn about each other in different parts of the world. Our second is the A, and this is freedom to assemble. Now, freedom to assemble is really important because it's kind of our right to protest, all right? So assemble, if you guys think about assemblies that you go to here at Liberty, right, it's when everybody comes together to watch a performance. When we say freedom to assemble, it can be one person or it can be a big group, okay, as is in this picture, right? So when athletes right now, a lot of them are doing different forms of protesting at the national anthem, which has been controversial. But one of the reasons why they've been able to do that, and there hasn't been any real action taken against any of them in terms of forcing them to stand, is because they do have the right to protest. Now, there's a big catch to protesting here in the United States. The athletes that are protesting right now are allowed to do so because they're doing it peacefully. As soon as a group or individual becomes violent in their protesting of something, then they are crossing a line and they are no longer protected under the First Amendment. Okay? And so one big thing to remember about this picture too is that these people are marching, and that's normally a really good example of freedom to assemble. So if you guys think about last year, you guys learned about the civil rights movement and stuff, and when Martin Luther King led people on marches around the country, that is a perfect example. He was able to do so because of our freedom to assemble. Our next one is freedom to petition, and this is something that students you guys normally really struggle with. So we'll try and come up with a couple examples that you guys will do throughout the year. But one thing we're most likely going to do next week is you guys are going to sign or write a letter to an administrator at Liberty to try and petition them for some type of change, okay? So petitioning is when you reach out and you try and contact a public official, okay? So here at Liberty, when you sign a petition, you're either, well, signing a petition means that you're signing a complaint, and somebody's trying to get a whole list of complainers to show how big an issue it is and how many people support the need for change, okay? You can also put in a phone call or write a letter to a public official to try and convince them, influence them to change some policy that you might not like or enjoy, all right? And if you guys look on the back wall near where our interactive notebook table of contents is, you guys will find a petition folder. So if you guys ever have something in class that you'd like to see changed or talked about, you guys can try and write a letter to me and put it in the folder. Every once in a while I'll go check it. If there's a lot of signatures or there's a lot of people writing about the same issue, we might address it. There are some things that will probably not change, like current events are not going away. I know a lot of you might not be happy about that, but something we have to do in civics, okay? But if there's something in class that you guys might enjoy having or that's realistic, then we might be able to make that happen, okay? But it's just one other avenue for you guys to communicate something that you might want or need in class in a different way than besides just raising your hand, okay? The next one for press, when we talk about press, you might think of stuff, the phrase fresh off the press. That is a kind of like a newspaper phrase. And so freedom of press allows us to criticize the government in our newspapers. Now, it doesn't mean that we're allowed to write lies or take shots or make up stuff, fictional material about people. But what it allows us to do is that if there's a public official like the president, somebody in the House of Representatives, the Senate, anybody that's an elected official, we're allowed to openly criticize them, because as long as we're based in some sort of truth, because this gives us the opportunity to make sure that our government is being held accountable, all right? Because in some countries, newspapers are highly, highly censored or limited, and people get to control exactly, the government kind of controls what's written in the papers. And so here in the United States, we have freedom of press to try and protect that, to make sure our newspapers stay kind of free of people controlling it. And our last one is speech. And we'll talk a lot more about speech, but the two big things to notice is, one is at the very bottom under speech, you guys also wrote, also covers expression. So speech is not just limited to what we say, all right? What we wear is also a big, big form of freedom of speech, okay? Because that's how we we don't just express ourselves through our words. It's also partially on how we dress ourselves and how we go about doing things, okay? One of the big things to know about freedom of speech, and you guys will probably notice this with school, okay, is that you guys can't wear whatever you want to school, if you think about it, right? When you guys try and put on a shirt that has maybe a symbol that might be offensive to others, or might just have something that is a little bit more mature content on it, you know, normally you're not allowed to wear different things like that to school. And the reason why you're not is because freedom of expression is limited whenever you come into a school setting. So we need to make sure that when we think about this stuff, okay, and this is on the right-hand side of your freedom of wraps, is a quick question, and it's, are all these freedoms, all of our First Amendment freedoms, absolute or unlimited, okay? And the answer to that is no, all right? Our First Amendment freedoms, whenever we come to school, is a perfect example of this. We cannot say and wear whatever we want at school. Our freedom of speech is protected in that we are able to say certain things, okay? But it is limited because we can't say whatever we want whenever we want. And when we say we can say whatever we want, it's that somebody might raise their hand and say, but Mr. Grant, I can say whatever I want. No, well, you can, but when we say you can say whatever you want, whenever you want, we're saying you can say and do whatever you want without any form of consequence, okay? So if somebody chose to say something inappropriate in school, then there would be a consequence to it, right? Something would come about it, a lunch detention, something, okay? But if we have freedom of speech, then we can say anything we want. If we had absolute freedom of speech, we'd be able to say whatever we want without any form of consequence coming about. Okay, so we absolutely do not have absolute freedom of speech. The next things that we're going to go through, which will be a little bit quicker, the 14th Amendment grants us due process at the state level. All right, and remember that due process, we'll get to the definition in the next slide, but it says that pretty much the state police and the local police, because they're the police at our local level, have to respect all of our rights, as well as the local and state courts. The second thing that the 14th Amendment does, it gives us the Equal Protection Clause, which says that under the law, regardless of race, religion, or gender, everybody is equal, right? And so everybody gets protected by the law. And so it doesn't matter if you're Christian, Jewish, Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, anything. Everyone is equal. If you're a man or woman, there's no difference in the law, and it doesn't matter about your race, okay? And the third thing it does, which we kind of talked about during the naturalization process, is that it defines citizenship. As you either are given citizenship by being born in the United States, or you go through the naturalization process. Now, something that's really important that you rewrite again is, what is due process? And you guys need to write that the legal due process is the legal requirement that the government must respect all your rights, right? And I recommend you guys pausing here and make sure you write it again. And the due process, a good example of it would be like your Miranda rights, the right to remain silent, the right to an attorney, the right to a fair trial. All these things that are Bill of Rights amendments, okay? These are all accepted as due process and rights that we have whenever it comes to the law and legal action, okay? So if you guys are now up in the red, we're going to go what we just covered with the 14th Amendment was in the red, and now we're going to go to the left side of it to do the 5th. And the 5th Amendment says we cannot testify against ourselves in a court of law. So what I'd like everybody to do for the 5th Amendment is take their hand and put their 5 fingers over their mouth, because that's one way to remember what the 5th Amendment does. It says we cannot testify against ourselves in a court of law. The 5th Amendment also grants us due process at the federal or national level, okay? And this means that if the FBI or anybody like that, or any of the national courts, you broke a federal law, they also still have to respect all of your rights, okay? So the example of this in terms of law enforcement would be like if the FBI came looking for you, okay? They still have to respect all of your legal rights, okay? Just because they are a national law enforcement agency does not mean they get to disregard your rights as a citizen in the U.S., okay? Now, we're going to go through the last 2 things a little bit faster than all the amendments because it's not as complicated or new. So you guys should flip up to where you get the duties page. So your top and bottom page should be red. And for definitions, you can write that duties are something you have to do. You guys already filled out that it's mandatory or required at the very bottom. So the 5 things that you're going to write on the top is, first, you must obey. You must obey the laws of the land, okay? Second, you have to pay taxes. Third, if you are called to serve on a jury, you must serve as a witness. If you're called to serve on a jury, you have to do that. If you're also asked to be a witness to a trial, okay, to a crime or in the support of somebody's defense, you must come if you are called. Fourth and fifth is that you must attend school until you're at least 16. Everyone normally goes until about 18. And you also have to serve in the military if you're drafted. There's 2 other things we need to get to. What happens if I don't do a duty? You either pay a fine or you go to jail. You do not collect $200. Okay? So there's that. So we're going to flip up real quick, and I'm going to fill in the triangle and talk real fast so that way I don't have to make a second video for you, okay? For your top, okay, you should be at the very top with the blue and the red. The easiest responsibility you have as a citizen is voting, okay? And everyone is expected to contribute to the common good. That's your blank, and your service line is an example of that. What does it mean to be informed? It means that you're being aware of issues that are happening in the government and communicating with officials is an example of your First Amendment freedom to petition. And that, guys, is the end of this video presentation of your notes. If you have any questions, please ask them, shoot me an email, or replay part of the video. That's all.